Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new, I'm Helena, this is Layla, and she is eating right now. So today's video is going to be my labor and delivery story, I guess our labor and delivery story. So I'm just going to kind of go through the events leading up to going to the hospital and, just everything that happened during the delivery, how my labor went, and all that stuff. So let's get on into it. The night before I went into the hospital, I did have some leaking, but I thought that, it was just normal late pregnancy type of stuff, so I kind of just dismissed that. But it actually was my water. It ended up being my water. I didn't have just like a full-blown water break. It was more like a water leak. So in the middle of the night before I went to the hospital, I had that leaking. I didn't think much of it. And then the next day, I decided to go shopping with my mom. So we were going shopping for furniture and stuff. We went out to PA and I was still leaking. I still was just dismissing it. I didn't think much of it. In my head, I was never gonna give birth. I just thought that I was gonna be pregnant forever and I was never gonna give birth. I was only 38 weeks and 5 days when I delivered her, so I don't know why I was just so negative about, thinking that I was never going to actually have this baby. While I was shopping with her, I was still leaking. It was a slow leak. I didn't even tell her about it because I just really didn't think it was anything. We came back around to my area and were shopping at antique stores, and when we were at the antique store, I noticed that I could feel that my pants were wet, and the leaking that I was having throughout the whole entire day actually leaked through my pants. So once that happened, I realized that this wasn't just some normal, pregnancy stuff. It was something more than that. I was kind of in denial about the fact that it was actually happening. My mom was getting all excited and she was telling me, this is it, we're gonna have this baby, and I was so like, this is not it, this is not happening, like, I don't think that this is really my water. Like, I just really totally was in denial about the whole entire thing. So we got into the car and we came back to the house to grab my hospital bag, Mark's hospital bag, and the diaper bag with the baby stuff in it. I called Mark, and luckily he was on his way home from work, and it was a Friday, so it was like perfect timing. And the hospital was on his way home from work, so we just met him there. And the whole car ride to the hospital, I was just in denial. I was telling her this isn't it. Like, I was honestly just scared. I was scared to give birth. I was scared that this was really happening. And that was kind of weird for me because the whole entire time that I was pregnant, I didn't have any little bit of really nervousness about delivering the baby. I know some people get really nervous during pregnancy, just like haunting them that, at the end of this, they're gonna have to deliver a baby, and it's, kind of scary for some people, but for me, I wasn't really that nervous about it. Until it was actually happening, then I was just like a giant baby about it. Yeah, so we got to the hospital, we met up with Mark in the parking lot, we went in, and I was in a triage room, and so I had to get into a gown, which I remember being so frustrating because we couldn't figure it out, and I was just so nervy and anxious and scared of just everything that I was like losing my mind over not being able to get this gown on. I remember that. So we got the gown on. A nurse came in, and the OB on call came in eventually, and they tested my water, so the fluid that was leaking out the whole day. They tested my water. It was my water, so I was admitted into the hospital. They were a little bit concerned because thinking back on when the leaking started, it was the middle of the night, the previous night, and they don't really like your water to have been broken for over 24 hours, and it was really getting close to that. So they really wanted to speed it along and get me on some Pitocin because I wasn't even really contracting. I was feeling some lower back pain during the day. Here and there, it wasn't so bad. It didn't really bother me too much. I thought maybe it could be contractions, and it was. But the thing about my labor was that I didn't have any actual contractions in my stomach. They were all in my back, so I had back labor the whole entire time. It just felt like intense pressure and cramping just in my lower back. It honestly didn't feel like something I haven't felt before, because I had lower back pain like the whole pregnancy. It was just like intensified lower back pain. Once they got me admitted, it took a while for them to get me started on the Pitocin. They got the IV in, and honestly, the worst pain of the whole entire labor and delivery experience was getting that IV in. And I've gotten IVs before. I'm not scared of needles. Like, I get blood work all the time, and that IV was really painful. She was like moving the needle around in my arm, and it was just like a terrible, just uncomfortable, horrible pain. So I remember that being like the worst. Then after that, it took a little bit for them to start the Pitocin, because they were delivering a baby a few rooms away, so the nurses were busy assisting on that. But after they finished delivering that baby, then they came in and got my Pitocin started and had to start me on penicillin as well, because I tested positive for Group B strep, which is something that they test during pregnancy. Some women have it, some don't. It's like a totally random thing. I ended up having it, and that just meant that they had to give me some antibiotics so that the baby didn't get sick or anything after the birth. Oh, the penicillin was actually pretty painful too. It sounds kind of silly because you think that just getting some antibiotics through the IV doesn't sound very bad. Wowzers. So the problem that I had with the penicillin was it burned. It burned my arm really badly. I didn't have to get it constantly. They would come in with bags of penicillin every couple hours and give me those. I hated it because it was like a burning in my arm, just throughout my whole entire arm for like 10 minutes as the bag was emptying. So I was getting that penicillin. I started contracting more once they started the Pitocin, of course, because, you know, that's pushing you along and further into the labor process. Like I said, I was having back labor, so the pain just got more intensified. I did not try and hold off and wait as long as I could for the epidural. As soon as I started feeling uncomfortable, then I just asked for the epidural, just to save myself the trouble of, you know, having to tire myself out from pain. So some people are different. Some people want to labor it out and wait it out and see how long they can go. I was just, you know, trying to get through the whole thing. Hi. She's always so smiley after she eats. Hi, Chunk. Hi, Chunky. Hi, Chunky, you a smile. After I got the epidural, everything was like way better. There was a little button every 20 minutes I could push, and it would administer the epidural. I never really felt any pain. Like everyone says, my legs were numb. You know, I couldn't feel anything below my, like up here down. I couldn't feel anything. So the epidural was great. I didn't have any problem with them putting the epidural in. It didn't hurt really. They give you a shot to numb it, and then they have to like feed a tube up into your spine, and that's the epidural. It sounds pretty bad, and like you can feel the pressure of the tube feeding up your back, but it's more of just like a weird, uncomfortable pain and pressure, but it was nothing terrible at all. It was totally doable. So after I got the epidural, things were just really pain-free. I was able to take a nap, a lot of naps. I slept a decent amount, and they brought me one of those peanut balls that goes in between your legs, and I had to lay on one side for like 30 minutes and then the other side for 30 minutes, and just kept flip-flopping every 30 minutes to make sure that the epidural was getting both sides of my body. The peanut ball, I think, was really great in dilating and getting my cervix dilated to a 10. It still took overnight. Around the next day at 10, I was dilated completely. After they got the peanut ball, Mark was laying with me and we were able to snuggle a little bit, but after a while, you know, the peanut ball was taking up a lot of the space in the bed, and it's a small hospital bed, so he got the boot and I had to just nap by myself for a little bit. What? 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 Yay! Oh, you're so cute. So then, of course, after the epidural, I forgot to even mention this, I had to get a catheter. Alright, Layla's in her bouncer, so if you hear any noises or bird sounds or anything like that, that is her bouncer. I had to get a catheter for my urine. That was kind of weird because since I had just gotten the epidural, you know, they say that you won't feel anything with the catheter. I did. It wasn't a painful thing, it was just another like weird, like uncomfortable feeling of like pressure. It's just weird because with the epidural you can feel it like climbing up your back, and then with the catheter I could feel it like going up into my bladder because they have to put the tube up into your bladder, which honestly just sounds terrible, but it was fine. After it was in, like it was just, I forgot about it and it was fine. So then I was able to nap for a little bit and slept through the night. I didn't sleep completely through the night. Of course, I was waking up. I wasn't just like dead asleep the whole entire time because I had to keep moving from side to side with the ball. And the next morning, I was feeling a little bit nauseous. Like right leading up to when I started to push, I was feeling kind of nauseous. Nothing too bad. I remember that they have those little monitors on your stomach that are supposed to monitor your contractions, and I remember like the whole entire time that I was there, it was just not picking up the contractions. I could feel the contractions, and obviously I was having contractions. After the epidural, I didn't feel the contractions anymore, but even then, it wouldn't pick up the contractions. It was just like a weird mishmash of like waves and stuff that wasn't consistent at all. Like it was just totally wrong. Eventually, they decided to put in an intrauterine monitor, which also sounds pretty uncomfortable and gross. So they had to stick a tube, another tube, tubes all over, all up into my uterus. So they fed the tube all the way up into my uterus. I was obviously numbed from the epidural, so I didn't feel the tube go up, but just knowing where it was going was kind of unsettling. It was kind of gross. Then we were able to monitor the contractions perfectly, and everything started to make more sense. The next morning, early in the morning, I think I was dilated to about a 6. And then they kind of just let me be for a few hours. They didn't want to check me too much considering my water had been broken for over 24 hours. They didn't really want to keep checking me and putting me at risk for infection. Eventually, the doctor came in. I had the on-call doctor. My OB was not on call, so she didn't deliver my baby. It was the on-call doctor. And honestly, I was really happy with the on-call doctor. I had seen him already because he was in the practice with my OB, so I saw several different doctors just in case, you know, my OB wasn't on call. I was familiar with the other doctor. The doctor came in and said hi to us and checked me at around 10 a.m. I think, and he told me I was at a 10 and that we could start doing practice pushes. So we started doing the practice pushes at around 10. I loved like the vibe in the room with him because it wasn't like a very formal, like putting your feet into stirrups and stuff type of thing. Like he just literally sat at the edge of the bed. He sat on the bed and we just did some practice pushes, and it was just super casual, super just relaxed, and I really liked that. So he was kind of in and out of the room because he was literally delivering other babies. Like he was just jumping around and coming in and back and leaving for a little bit, and then he would come back because, like I said, it took 2 hours. I don't know if I said this or not. It took 2 hours to deliver her, 2 hours of pushing. So, you know, obviously he wasn't in the room for 2 hours. He had to go and tend to other patients. But the nurses stayed with me, and then I started doing real pushes, and I remember thinking that they were practice pushes because we were just pushing and pushing and pushing, and I said, these are just practice pushes, right? And he said, nope, these are the real thing. So I was pushing and pushing, and it was exhausting. And some people say with the epidural it's a little bit harder to push because you can't exactly feel if you're doing the job. I feel like I kind of struggled a little bit with it, but it didn't, you know, affect the birth. You know, typically with your first baby, it takes longer. So 2 hours of pushing isn't uncommon. I was exhausted. I hardly really remember pushing. It's all kind of just a blur of being just super tired and super hot. My mom was holding this leg and Mark was holding this leg. It took a long time. She was stuck. So I obviously didn't see anything because I wasn't the one giving birth. What? I didn't see any of the birth because I didn't want a mirror. They didn't give me a mirror. I'm happy I didn't get the mirror. I think that's like a little too graphic. I'd rather not know what it looks like down there during this. Mark and my mom said that when I pushed, you would see her head like kind of coming out, and then it would go back in. And then I would push, and it would kind of come out, and then it would go back in. So it's just like 2 hours of just trying to get her to come out. We just couldn't get her. I just couldn't get her out. Eventually, of course, she did come out. She's here. She did not just stay in there forever like I expected her to, because, you know, crazy, super pregnant me was like, she's never coming, but she came. She had the cord wrapped around her neck, which was, of course, a scary thing for Mark to see and my mom to see. She was like totally discolored. She was what they described was like purple gray-ish, which is not a very good color. So I didn't even know that. Of course, the doctor knew exactly what to do when he noticed that the cord was wrapped around her neck. He took care of it immediately. There was no stress. I didn't even notice, like no one even told me until afterwards. I didn't have to stress about it, which was nice because I had to push and get this baby out. So he just cut the cord right off her neck. Mark did get to cut the cord when she was out. It was just to give him that moment of cutting the cord, but it, you know, wasn't actually cutting the cord because they had to cut the cord off her neck. She came out and they put her on me, and I just remember she had the biggest cone head I've ever seen. And I have watched tons of labor and delivery vlogs. I have watched like way more than I probably needed to, but I've never ever seen a cone head like that. It was something else. That went down. Obviously it wasn't a big deal, but her head was pretty beaten up, and she had like a scrape on her head that was really sensitive, and then she also had a burst blood vessel in her eye from being squeezed. In the end, she was okay, and she laid on me for about an hour. She laid on me, and Mark didn't get any skin-to-skin time during that. They kind of just let me hold her for about an hour. Then they asked if I wanted her weighed or if I wanted to continue holding her, and I really wanted to find out how much she weighed. So they weighed her, and she was 7 pounds 9 ounces, which was less than I expected. And I'm back, and I'm in a different outfit, and I'm probably looking super rough. And Layla's over here trying to roll around. Are you trying to roll around? Here, let's say hi. Let's say hi. So it just cut off talking about skin to skin. I think we were talking about skin to skin. Yeah, I was editing and I realized that all the rest of the footage was gone, but luckily, I really didn't say much more after that. I mean, after the baby was here, that was kind of the end of my labor and delivery story. And I just, oh, oh nice. Thanks, Layla. All right. Technical difficulties. Okay. That was pretty much the end of my labor and delivery story. I went on to talk a little bit about the beginning of our breastfeeding journey, which only lasted about a month. But I was talking about how she had a really good latch and everything was going really well for us. I was producing enough colostrum, considering their stomachs are like this tiny, so they really don't need much. But yeah, that was pretty much the end of my labor and delivery story. But I just wanted to pop back in and obviously say goodbye, because I already did say goodbye, but that footage is now gone. But I'll say it again. Thank you guys for watching. If you like this video, then like it down below, subscribe to our channel, and we will see you in the next one. Say bye, ladies. Bye.